Subscribe to my channel before we start, because stories like this, they hit different when you've lived life long enough to know how time works. 7 years is a long stretch to erase a voice from your mind. But the moment I heard hers at night, it felt like time had only been dozing, not gone. I was at a quiet Italian restaurant downtown. Dim lights, warm bread set in the air, garlic drifting like memory. Friday night, eating alone after work. I just closed a deal at the firm and promised myself a rare, quiet evening. Phone on silent, jacket on the next chair. My mind clear for once. Then I heard it. Laughter. Her laughter. Soft, familiar, that exact same rhythm that used to echo in my kitchen years ago. I froze before I even looked. I almost convinced myself I imagined it. 7 years is long enough for memories to glitch. But when I finally turned my head, she was right there. Emily. Same posture. Same unconscious little habit of tucking her hair behind her ear when she laughed. Different haircut, a bit shorter. Different man sitting across from her. Couldn't even fully see his face, but the way she leaned toward her relaxed, comfortable, was the same tilt she once had with me. My chest got tight. Not jealousy, more like the eerie realization that someone who once knew the blueprint of your heart now sits a stranger just a few feet away. I tried to focus on my food, but my fork shook. The waiter asked if I needed anything. No, I said, voice breaking. My appetite was gone. A part of me wanted to stand up and leave. But another part, the part that still remembered her birthday without effort, wanted to stay. 7 years since the divorce. 7 years since I'd last seen her in person. I used to imagine how it'd go if we ever crossed paths again. Would I tell her I was fine? Would I say sorry for the damage I caused? Or would I just walk by her like nothing ever happened? I didn't have to decide. She stood first. I felt her presence before she spoke. She walked over my table and stood beside me. For one still second, neither of us said a word. The music from the speakers filled that silence. Sinatra singing about second chances. Daniel, she finally said. Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands gripping her purse tight. I looked up at her, and for a moment it felt like the years fell away. I was 28 again, sitting on her old couch watching her read under a lamp. Hi, I said eventually. She smiled, small guarded. It's really you. Last time I checked. I said, trying to laugh through the awkwardness heavy with everything left unsaid. How have you been? She asked. Good. Working a lot. You? She glanced back at her table. I'm managing. I nodded. That counts. She shifted her stance, not sure if she should stay or go. Then she looked at my plate and said softly, You always order the carbonara. You said it felt like comfort. I smiled. It still does. That tiny memory cracked the distance between us for a single second. The waiter refilled my water and nodded at her politely. 7 years, she whispered. Feels like another lifetime. Maybe it was, I said. She really looked at me then, and I saw that faint tiredness beneath her eyes. The same look she used to have after our late-night fights over work, and the tiny misunderstandings that eventually became walls. You look good, she said quietly. Thanks. You too. And then she finally said it. The first real words that weren't small talk. Daniel, I still think about what I said that night. The night you left. My throat tightened instantly. Before I could respond, the man she was with walked up next to her. Everything okay, Em? He asked politely. She nodded quickly. Yeah, just saying hi to an old friend. She turned back to me. It was good seeing you. You too. I managed. She took a few steps, then stopped. Look back. Eyes slightly wet. Maybe it's not too late to apologize, she whispered. And before I could say anything, she walked back to her table. Back to her new life. Back to the candlelight. I just sat there listening to my own pulse, trying to understand what she meant. Apologize for what? Leaving? Staying too long? Breaking something we both kept failing to fix? I didn't know yet, but I was going to find out. I paid my bill and stepped outside. Cool night air, streets damp from a light drizzle earlier. I stood under the awning thinking if I should walk back in and say something real. But what would I even say? It's fine? Don't worry about it. Truth was, I didn't even know which part she was sorry for. I walked to my car, and that last night 7 years ago came crashing back. It started as something small like always. She said I care more about work than us. I said she didn't understand pressure. She said I was cold. I told her she was cruel. Then she said it with complete calm. I don't love you anymore, Daniel. I packed a bag that night, expecting she'd tell me to stop. She didn't. That used to be the memory that cut deepest. But time had dulled it. I built a quiet life. Nothing dramatic. Nothing chaotic. But hearing her voice tonight reignited everything that had faded to embers. I drove home with the windows down, neon lights slipping past like ghosts. I told myself I'd forget this by morning. But when I got home, the silence hit heavy, and her words replayed again clearer. Maybe it's not too late to apologize. Near midnight, I poured bourbon and sat by the window while the rain came back steady. I scrolled through old messages I never deleted, fragments, grocery lists, faded photos from when things were still simple. Then I hit the last text before the divorce papers arrived. I hope you find peace, Daniel. Back then, I took it as a final goodbye. But sitting there 7 years later, I realized maybe she never found peace either. I didn't call her, didn't text her. Some things don't need reviving, but sleep never came. The next morning, I walked through the park near my place. Fog hanging low, trees quiet. Then I saw her again, sitting alone on a bench, holding a coffee, staring at the lake. She looked up, surprised, a little embarrassed. "You again," she said softly. I smiled. Guess we both needed air. She laughed lightly. I couldn't sleep. We sat side by side quietly. Ducks on the water. Fog drifting. Finally she spoke. "About last night, I never meant to stir anything up." "You didn't." I lied. She turned toward me, eyes steady. "I just needed to apologize for how I ended things. I was angry. I thought leaving you would make me happy. It didn't." I didn't respond. Once in a while, silence is the only answer that fits. She looked down at her hands. "I kept telling myself you didn't care. But you did. You just didn't know how to express it." I nodded slowly. "We both messed up?" "Yeah," she whispered. "But I think I made the biggest mistake. We stayed there longer, knowing there was nothing left to fix, but also nothing broken anymore." When she stood up to leave, she touched my shoulder gently. "Take care of yourself, Daniel." "You too, Emily." She smiled and walked away into the fog, without looking back. I stayed a long time after she disappeared. The morning light broke through clouds and hit the lake just right, and for the first time in years, I felt peace again. Forgiveness doesn't always arrive dramatic or loud. Sometimes it's just quiet words in the park, years late but perfectly on time. That night in the restaurant, I thought her first words shook me because of the pain inside them. Now I know they shook me because they carried something else. Closure.